Let's stay energized, let's stay engaged, because this one is not going to be, just something that you can sit back and enjoy. It's going to be something we need you with full attention and focus. For the first keynote address, we have somebody very, very special. She's a Chennai-based social impact leader. It's an honor to welcome Dr. Saundarya Rajesh, the founder, president, Avtar Group, a leading organization focused on diversity and inclusion. Dr. Saundarya set up Avtar, India's first DEI solutions company, which has been the sole source of creating employment opportunities for over 1 lakh second career women, and has influenced the continuous career of over 2 lakh women via international career pathing. Referred to as the career doctor by companies and career-seeking women, Dr. Saundarya has influenced the creation of safe and secure workplaces for over 10 lakh women via the advisory services provided by Avtar. Dr. Saundarya has won accolades such as the Ministry of Women and Child Development, #100 Women Achiever Award, Twitter's #Web Wonder Women Award, the Chevening Global Changemaker Award, the Winds of Change 2019 Award by the Minnesota Forum on Workplace Inclusion, Niti Aayog's Women Transforming India Award, Golden Aviator Award, Asia's Most Innovative Diversity and Inclusive Leaders Award, amongst many others. I now invite Dr. Saundarya Rajesh on stage for the opening keynote address. The topic of her talk is Igniting the Integrity Vibe. It's time to be good. Dr. Saundarya Rajesh, please join us. After her address, Vineet Handa, CEO and founder, Kaizzen, will join her on stage for a fireside chat. Over to you.
Oh, this is fantastic being here today, and I can't tell you how exciting it was this morning to not only see the way in which Amit and Anubhuti and Roshan and the entire team had kind of, put together a fabulous conference for all of us. I can give you a dozen reasons. I can give you 100 reasons for why it is absolutely fantastic to be here. But I'm going to give you 3. Reason number 1. Amit spoke about Pondicherry and Mahabalipuram. You should absolutely go there. He said, don't go and don't disappear, but if you can, do it. I'll tell you, because I am from Pondicherry. It is a cute little, gorgeous, tiny gem of a town, very cosmopolitan, very cute, tucked away on the beaches of the Bay of Bengal. And I grew up there. My father had just one diktat for me. Study whatever you want. It has to be within Pondicherry. You can't go outside of it. But I wanted to be a mass communication and journalism professional. And we did not have those institutes in Pondi. So you can imagine my delight when one day, and this must have been 1986, I think many of you may not have been born at that time. And I was kind of flipping the newspaper, and I found this insert for a correspondence course in one of the institutes called IIMC. It's not the IIMC that many of us in India are familiar with. This is the Inspiring Institute of Mass Communication. And it was based in Jalandhar. But I looked at it, and I was super excited because here was a way in which I could learn the profession, and I signed up for it. And people at IMC, they really took their job very seriously. The minute I had paid the fees, I got a receipt, and within the next 1 week, I got by post. Those were the days when internet and all of these ease of living today did not exist. So I got this big bunch of, learning material. And the way we would do it is, every month there would be an assignment, and then I would handwrite it, because again, no computers and stuff. You would handwrite that assignment, put it inside an envelope and post it. And you would also have put another envelope inside it with the stamp, so that the person that's, correcting on the other side would do that and come back. So each, month, the same process happened. I would write, wait for the scores, and, it would come back to me. And every month, there would be this very neat feedback about the assignment written by one Mr. Azad. And Mr. Azad would give very, very pointed feedback, and he would always end his comments with, best wishes to be the best communicator. And I thoroughly enjoyed, and if there was a time when I didn't receive the feedback or my assignment, I would place an STD call to Jalandhar. Those were the days when, we had subscriber trunk dialing. And I would connect with Mr. Azad, who would, speak to me and say, no, it's coming, and so on. I successfully completed the course, and I received a beautiful diploma, which again was strangely in Mr. Azad's handwriting, because by then I knew how to recognize that. I also noticed that all the envelopes had his handwriting, and at a hunch, I went and picked up the receipt I got first from him when I paid the fees. That too was in Mr. Azad's handwriting. So I realized that Mr. Azad was both the course instructor, the dispatch clerk, the telephone operator, the director of the institution, and the customer service person. Now, isn't this kind of similar to what we all in the communication space do? Write our own content, identify those influencers to connect up with, make sure that it reaches the right person, and do all of the stuff by ourselves. I'm so glad. Reason number one is I'm meeting a lot of Azads face to face here in the auditorium today. Reason number two, after I got into my job, by the way, I never got into communication and journalism, as you can clearly see. I became a social entrepreneur, but before that, there was a space of about 7 years when I had quit my job and I had become a statistic. Now, I say that I became a statistic because in India, 48% of all Indian women professionals take a break in career at least once. And 18% of this group never makes it back into the workplace. And they fall into this deep, bottomless well of a lack of identity, a lack of financial security, and a complete disconnect with whatever is happening in the world outside. So when I looked at that future that awaited me, I didn't want to be part of that group. So I started applying for random jobs. And one job that I landed was because I had sent my resume and the diploma that I got from the Inspiring Institute of Mass Communication to our very own All India Radio here in Chennai. And I got that job, and I felt really glad that even for a brief period, I was a part of this glorious group of communication professionals who can bravely say that communication will always come to your rescue at any given point of time. Third reason, after I started Avtar, and this was in the year 2000, what I wanted to do was to essentially find jobs for women who had taken a break in career. And for that purpose, me and my team, I have a lot of my colleagues here, we used to go and knock on the doors of a ton of different organizations. And everyone would always tell us, what is the point? What's the business case in employing a woman who's, taken a break, gaping break, when we have so many people without that ubiquitous break? And I had to actually depend on the integrity and the goodness of a lot of people, nameless, faceless people, who actually put their reputation on the line in order to create my reputation. So as a social entrepreneur, from one Saundarya Rajesh, who took a break, to over 1 lakh Saundaryas, who today have been placed by Avtar back into the Indian workplace, it's been a journey thanks to igniting the integrity vibe amongst a whole lot of great people. Yes, it is the time to be good, and to build goodness in all of our communication. But it's not easy. Making sure that you ignite this integrity vibe is definitely not easy. I mean, we keep hearing about honesty being the best policy and, do good things and so on. And a lot of that moral stuff. Do you remember when you first kind of heard about all of this moral aspects? Do you remember moral science class in the schools? Yeah, I can see a lot of people who are saying that, yeah, you do remember the moral science class. And let's take a quick poll here, right? If your answer is yes, please put up your hand. If your answer is no, you don't need to put up your hand. Simple instructions, okay? So, attended a moral science class. Great, super, that's a lot of you. Now the next question, and moral science class is great fun, isn't it? I mean, you'd write like, there'll be a bunch of these questions and it's just objective type and you'll have to say what is right and wrong. Maybe you'll write a couple of essays and you would get great scores. You'd probably top the class. How many have topped moral science class here? You can put up your hands. Great, yes. But here comes the catch. Haven't you been told that no matter your grades in moral science, your grades in the real subjects matter? Maths, yes, I weep with you. I completely understand how painful that is, right? Now let's go to the next question. All of us are taught never to lie. We are told, don't lie, don't speak untruths, and all of that stuff, yeah? And then how many of us have been told, hey, listen, if you have to save your marriage, say that little feeble little lie. What's wrong with it? Or if you don't want to attend that pointless family gathering, and you also don't want to be a social family outcast, then, you can bend the truth a little bit and say something, right? Aren't we given constantly conflicting messages about integrity? Yes or no? I'm going to ask Shreya why such a big lunch was served, because I'm not hearing anything from you. Yes? Yes. So we have a complicated relationship with this whole integrity business. It's a huge, a lot of complexity over there. Now let's just take the textbook definition, right? We are talking about igniting the integrity vibe, right? So ignite. Obviously, it comes from the Sanskrit word agni and the Latin word ignitas, and it basically means to set fire to something or, get that whole thing going in a blazing manner, yeah? And then you have the word vibe. When Anubhuti selected the word vibe, there were a lot of different topics. I kind of agreed with you because I think that's a word that has been appropriated by the Gen Zs. And I wanted to use that word. It's really cool. I'm definitely not part of that generation, but I wanted to use it. YOLO, right? So you should use these words and be really cool with it. So here we are talking about igniting the integrity vibe. So how do we do it? I'm going to share with you the story of how we at Avtar kind of did this in our social entrepreneurship movement. And I'm going to share 4 epiphanies with you. So the first thing, you all know that what we do at Avtar is to find jobs for women who've taken breaks in career. Is that right? Yeah? Now, this is what I used to do. Now, what you see here, of course, this is a fictional CV. There is that photo, all of that was just from Canva. So that's not a genuine person, but you have hundreds of such people. You have someone who has a fabulous, set of experiences in their profile. They kind of, have done all the right things. And what would you think? You take this profile to a talent acquisition person, and that person looks at the profile and says, oh my God, fantastic skills, absolutely great, let's hire her. But of course, there is a small matter of something right at the top, which is the career break. Now, what happened in our experience, and this has happened any number of times, is that the minute somebody looked at a profile like this, they would linger longer on the career break and not on the skills that the individual actually possessed. Now, this, looking at this break, is definitely because we are wired that way. And that wiring is due to a little thing called the negativity bias. Now, what this negativity bias does, and as communication professionals, all of us here have the tough job to make sure that our organizations, our communication, our PR, everything tries to be either balanced or share something positive. But we are not able to do that. Why are we not able to do it? Now, here is a quick demo for all of us. I'm going to show you 2 news headlines. And I want you to tell me which one you kind of looked at even for a few seconds longer. Okay? So there's one that's going to be on the right, and there's one that's going to be on the left. If your eyes linger longer on the right, you'll have to put up your hand. If it lingers on the left, you don't need to raise your hand. I will know that you've looked at the left. Are we on? Shall we go ahead? This is the first headline. Okay? Thousands laid off in a sweeping headcount reduction, one that we are all extremely familiar with as well. Okay? Now, here's another bit of news. Over 300 companies signed charter to become inclusive. Now, here's your question, and answer honestly. We are here in a conference about integrity. Okay? So, be truthful and tell me whether you lingered longer on the headline at the right or on the left. If you say right, put up your hand. If you say left, don't put up your hand. Okay, okay, great. So many of us have lingered longer on the headline, which has a bit of negative news in it. Now, this is truly very, very normal, because non-conscious biases exist for a reason. In the Neanderthal age, non-conscious biases, and they're not unconscious bias, they are non-conscious biases, because when you're unconscious, you're not even conscious. So how can you hold a bias? It's non-conscious bias. And in the Neanderthal age, you held to those non-conscious biases because anything that was different from you, anything that was strange, was either a cause of some kind of danger, or it was something that was filled with animosity towards you. It would be a person who looked different, or it would be somebody who, it was an animal, or a dangerous, sort of a force that was coming to you, and you developed those biases for survival. But in today's age, if we are holding the same kind of non-conscious biases, then that is similar to a human brain software glitch. It means that we are rushing to those decisions without realizing that they are probably not in our own best interest. So therefore, this is the first epiphany. Negativity bias is real. But here comes the good news. It is not permanent. At Avtar, we would have conducted anywhere between 10 to 15,000 sessions on non-conscious biases. And during each session, the feedback that we would consistently receive is, oh my God, I never knew this many biases existed. And there are truly hundreds of biases. You have the horn bias, you have the recency bias, you have the social comparison bias, you have the projection bias, you have the horn bias, and so on and so forth. We at Avtar, we have put together this list called the Dirty Dozen. And these are 12 prominent biases. And if you go to www.avatarinc.com, you will find a very nice article about the 12 prominent biases, which we call the Dirty Dozen. So how do we counter this? It's very simple. It basically means that you have to commit to de-biasing yourself. As communication professionals, you owe it not only to you, but to your organizations and virtually to every audience of yours that you stay unbiased. So how can we de-bias? Yes, you can read the Dirty Dozen. Constantly refresh your worldviews. Sometimes the people that most care for us, they are the ones that loan their biases to us. Because they don't want us to get hurt. They don't want us to suffer. So they tell us, don't trust X. Don't believe in what Y says. Don't think of this. And they fill our heads with a lot of biases. So it is important for us, especially as communication professionals, to refresh our worldviews again and again. And finally, revisit your closely held beliefs. Sometimes what we believe are values are actually biases in disguise. And that truly doesn't help us when our hope, when our objective is to write content, is to create programs that truly are filled with the power of integrity, right? Okay, now moving on, one of the things we realized is that just finding women jobs, especially second career women who had dropped off the workplace, that was not working. We needed policies. Just this morning, the Honorable Minister, Panivel Thiagarajan, he spoke about the fact that, the government's policies are not probably reaching the people, right? And very similar to that, when we started advising companies that, hey, you know what, your recruitment is great, you're hiring a lot of women, you're hiring a lot of second career women, but you know what, they're dropping off again. You have to fix something in your workplace. And we told them, you know what, you kind of earmark positions for second career women, or you can say that you'll have to have an equal interview slate, or you can say that you will offer more upskilling for women. And these are fantastic stuff, isn't it? Especially today, when you have ChatGPT and AI, practically doing 70% of content writing, it is super important for communication professionals and definitely women to upskill themselves, because women are constantly at the vulnerable front line of any kind of workplace disaster. So if we are to protect the jobs, then upskilling is important. And this company too insisted on it. But the women didn't buy it. They never signed up for the policies. They never signed up for the courses. They never looked at all of this. So then one company came forward and told us, hey, listen, we want to get to the bottom of this. Please conduct a research and tell us, why are the women not utilizing the policies which are clearly meant for their benefit? And so we did that. We ran focus groups and we asked the women, and we said, hey, women, these policies are for your benefit, and you're going to do very well if you utilize these, and you're not taking them, you're not utilizing them. And we have been shouting about it from the rooftops, and the women said, yes. That's the reason we are not utilizing the policies. You are kind of making it to be a great favor that you're doing to all of us. Don't do it. We are deserving of it. You trying to, get brownie points by giving those exclusive interviews and those, big news, breaking stories and all that about the fact that you're doing such great things for women makes us feel weird. So then we said, how would you like this information to be communicated to you? And they said, just tell us. There is something called positive gossip. What does this positive gossip do? Basically is a story from a woman about an experience which she shares with somebody else. And the word of mouth just spreads. It's like a positive grapevine. So we realized that positive gossip exists. This was our second epiphany, and it is super powerful. Women get to know things from each other, and the importance of choosing your audience. Here are the women, they wanted to be communicated in an intimate manner, in a personal manner. And to that audience, we were using a huge megaphone to kind of, share this information. So the answers that we got from that is goodness spreads faster through intimate channels. So whenever we are trying to see if we are getting that big breakthrough news, whether those impressions are happening, let us for a minute think if we need to go back to the old-fashioned working the phones, picking up the phones, talking to people, telling them, actually making it personal, making it intimate. So what we did, we created channels for the stories to be highlighted informally. We ran focus groups to share information. Even today, one of the biggest projects, longitudinal projects that Avtar works on, which is called the top cities for women in India. And interestingly, Chennai, the city that you're currently visiting, is India's #1 most inclusive city for women. This is a city that, and again, like the minister pointed out this morning, has had a tradition of inclusion, and that has made it a city that's really favored by women. And we run focus groups. We have run focus groups in practically every city in this country, and they give you so much of insight, and it's a two-way communication. Again, we can also have employee resource groups, which are created to stay relevant and to provide the information which is absolutely necessary for your audience. So now let's skip to 2005. At this time we were 5 years old, and we had landed 3 clients. Standard Chartered was our first client, and even today, if you go through the archives of the Hindu, you will find this article dated July the 9th, if I'm not mistaken, 2005, about this first ever return to work program that we conducted for Standard Chartered Bank. And then we did a similar program for Accenture and one more for Future Group. And then for us to land our 4th client took several years. Somehow or the other, we were not able to kind of, penetrate the gatekeepers, make sure that, our message was reaching the right audience. And we were thinking, why is this happening? Then we realized, any social change is very lonely. It's a lonely journey, and you need allies. So we started looking for champions within these companies who we would then empower. We would empower them with data, we would empower them with insights, and we would give them everything, the entire arsenal, for them to highlight the value and the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion in their workplaces. And the result was that today we have over 300 organizations that are part of the Avtar Group. And between all of these companies, dear friends, in the last just 1 year, they have added about 4 lakh women into the workplace. And this has only been because of the diversity champions. All hail the diversity champions, because they are the ones that really took this message and made sure that everybody in their organization made it their personal business to create a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture. So, negativity can survive alone, but integrity needs allies. This is the third epiphany that we got, that we came upon. And in order to build up the ally, what is required? It is very important to identify who are your allies in this journey of goodness, and where are they? Are they there in the workplaces that you are wanting to influence? Are they there in the media houses? Are they there, in the social channels? Do they have the same kind of, even a kernel of that integrity that you want to ignite the fire of? They are your heroes, right? And it's not just diversity or equity or inclusion or any of these things. Today, the necessity to be good is almost an imperative. In India, you have the SEBI, which has made it mandatory for organizations to file the Board Sustainability and Responsibility Report, the BRSR report. I'm sure a lot of us here in the audience who are the corporate communications professionals, who are part of your company's teams, I know how much you are struggling with putting together that report, because that's not easy, and you need allies. You need allies to make sure that you have all the data that is required and you're able to present it convincingly to your board and to all of the mandatory, statutory bodies that ask for this. ESG, environment, social and governance, is a burning topic today, literally as well, and it calls for a great deal of allyship within all of us and within the organizations that you each represent. And it also means that it's not just about building the ally, it's about making sure that you empower them. It could be with data, it could be with technology, it could be with very, very choice communication that you give to them. Even putting together their entire presentation deck, which they then take to the powers that be and get your job done. So that was our third epiphany. And so if you look at 2005, we were a one-trick pony. All we did would be finding jobs for second career women, right? That's all we used to do. And we had built this fabulous network of allies. We had people who really would, one phone call and they would make all of the arrangements. They would help us, find jobs for women. We started working in the space of not just gender, but also disability, also, working with communities like the LGBTQ community, cultural diversity, and a whole range of different types of identities. But then we realized that it was getting kind of monotonous. We needed to give them fresh ideas. So we created what we call the 6E framework. This framework looks at 6 ways in which companies can do the same thing. It is all about building a great culture. It's all about going through that transformational journey. It is all about inculcating the spirit of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your workplace. You can be a small company, a large company, you can be a multinational, a conglomerate, or you can be a 5-member team. If diversity, equity, and inclusion is not existing there, then you have lost it. So, in order to make that easy and interesting, we created 6 methods in which companies can include, be diverse, and also create equitable workplaces. The epiphany that came from this is, integrity runs deep, but it requires constant reminders. See, there is the internal integrity, which is all the value systems that our mother taught us, right? And there is the external integrity, which is the whole corporate social responsibility. Speaking of CSR, I hope you all take the time to check out www.putri.org, puthri.org. That's a not-for-profit which works towards creating career-intentional young women from deeply underprivileged sections of the society. And they're doing some fabulous work, and the outreach head, Ishwar, is right here over there. And you will find that corporate social responsibility is very alive and thriving. That is external goodness. So internal goodness and external goodness are always there. But we tend to forget them. In the busy VUCA of life, we tend to forget them. But in order to remember them, we just need some little reminders here and there as to why integrity actually makes sense. So let's quickly see how these goodness bring-ups can be created. You can, use occasions. You can use all of these days that we celebrate. Women's Day, Pride Month, Women's History Month, Cultural Diversity Day. They are nothing but reminders. They are reminders for all of us to go back and think of the integrity, the values that we want espoused, both in our personal and professional lives. We have to just give people more reasons to do good and be interesting without being boring or pedantic. I hope I wasn't either of them today. So that way, these goodness bring-ups really help every organization to make sure that you ignite the integrity vibe. So let's quickly now look at the epiphanies and the solutions. So integrity bias is real but not permanent. So the answer to that is de-bias yourself frequently. Positive gossip is real and powerful. Build intimate channels for talking about good stuff. Negativity survives alone, but integrity needs allies. So create lots of champions and allies in your network so that you're able to evangelize goodness. And finally, integrity runs deep. It's always omnipresent, but it requires frequent reminders. So remind people of the goodness to help it to resurface. Because, ladies and gentlemen, being good is good for business. Thank you so much.
Hello. Vanakkam. Namma Chennai.
Super. So how did you like the talk?
The best thing I loved is, the positive gossip. We, in our language, call it word of mouth, right? So now the difference here is, you said positive gossip moves faster
Yes.
in intimate channels.
Yeah.
The challenge is, today's world, the intimacy is gone, almost gone, right? The intimate channels are so shrunk. So the positive gossip doesn't move at all. Wherein if it's a negative thoughts or negative gossip, it moves like a fire. So therefore, the other options are also need to be looked at. But ma'am, coming back to one of the most important things you spoke about, the negative bias. And I personally feel, very strongly feel, that negative bias is actually the mother of various inventions, great people, and one of those great people I'm really sitting with and talking about. And I would want to understand that how Avatara took Avatar, what was the negative bias, and how you really countered it, fought it, and made this happen.
Thank you, Vineet. I think I have to go all the way back to probably 1994 or 5, and I'm in this office. I'm sitting across an interviewer. It's an interview, and it was a very popular telecom brand of the day. And they were looking for a position with absolutely the same skills that I possessed, and which I had done in my previous job with Citibank. And the gentleman looked at the profile, and he called the recruiter who had sent me, and he gave her a shelling. He said, "Why are you sending me an irregular profile?" So to him, regularity, which is a profile that didn't have a break, was paramount and more important than the skills that I possessed. So this was clearly a negative bias, as you said. So in my case, I think, in most often, solutions appear when you don't have a choice. So in my case, I did not have a choice. I needed to work. So one of the things I did was when I was coming face to face with this bias, there developed a sense of anger. That anger then changed into energy, and it told me that this cannot be the case, and I can't be the only one in India. I mean, we are like, everybody was speaking, we are the most populous country in the world. Right. And if 25 years after that, we still have women dropping off, then that means that negativity bias is still doing its job, right? And people like us are still required, and we need to keep combating it with whatever energy we can pick up.
So what was is that the moment where you got this idea that you want to do this?
You are absolutely right. That was the moment.
And I could see 5 years, you got 3 clients.
Yes.
Right? A story matches here, so yeah. So anyways, coming back to the same, what you're really talking about, guys, even in this room, I can see, if not less or more, the equation between the men and the women are almost 50-50. But in real sense in India, women dominate our industry. The
Oh.
PR communication industry is dominated by the women. But
Wow.
when I really look, and guys, clap to you.
Yay.
Lot of. But when I really look at this translating into the top management of whether it's a corporate or the agency side, both sides, I would say it's more men dominated. Guys, I think people agree with me on that, right? So, and one of the biggest reason for that is this career break.
You're absolutely right.
Biggest reason. I can see that in my own agency right now. There are cases where we are doing that. And it's easier said than done to really bringing people back and still giving them that sort of a space to have their comfort, to come back and start working. There are cultural issues, there are disciplinary issues, there are a lot of those kind of things which really come back.
Absolutely.
So I would want few words from you that how agency owners can manage that.
Okay, that's a great question. So first of all, I mean, big round of applause to the PR industry for having 50% women. That's fantastic, and I can give you some comparable statistics. In India, the workplace participation rate of white-collar women professionals is 18%. It's just 18%. We run an annual exercise called the Avtar and Seramount Best Companies for Women in India. It's India's largest diversity analytics exercise, and companies participate in it. And this year, among the 100 best companies for women in India, the workforce participation rate was 38%. Even that is less than your 50%. And definitely that's probably 8% more than the women's reservation that today, has probably will become a reality in 2029, they say. And so there's a ton load of work to be done when it comes to empowering women and to get them to have that equal participation, because ultimately it's like two wings of a bird. And how can a country, Bharat, fly if you have broken one wing and you have just one wing which is fully empowered? So you need a lot of support systems to ensure that women can continue their careers. One way in which to encourage more women to come back into the workplace is to, first of all, speak about it in all the forums that you can, so that you get associated with the fact that you are a hirer of women who are emerging from a break. The thing with women emerging from a break, and I have my colleague Lakshmi Vijaykumar right here, she heads events for Avtar, and she is a second career woman. She was a journalist, and she took a massive break for the typical reasons: marriage, motherhood, maternity, the 3 M's we call it. And then when she wanted to return, she came back to Avtar because Avtar is associated with encouraging women who come back from a break. So the first thing is talk about it. The second thing is, it is very important to build the confidence of women who return from a break. Now, confidence building can take many shapes. It can be by upskilling them, by actually telling them, how to become current with the skills that are needed. I mean, do you need to kind of, learn how to use a particular technology better, or do you need to kind of learn certain terminologies and certain, content better? Whatever it is, build up their confidence. And the third is, please enable women with a lot of flexibility. Flexibility is the oxygen of women's careers, at least in India. And what this means is that the whole discussion around great resignation and, is it work from home or is it work from office or should we all come back, this whole hybrid, mayhem that's happening, I would strongly say that if you want to continue to enjoy gender inclusion and gender diversity in your workplaces, please allow that flexibility. I'm in fact of the opinion, Vineet, that even within the PR community, that flexibility is probably one of the reasons that women are able to flourish. Is that right? Do you all enjoy flexibility? Yes? Probably.
As a CEO, I would not want to shout that, but yeah, if coming from people, I agree.
Okay.
the topic of our session is very interesting, and I've been thinking about it. Probably I'm wrong, and there are two parts of it. One is igniting the integrity vibe, and second, it's time to be good.
Yeah.
So I personally feel for good, there is no time. You have to be good. For an example, we as people, we live in our 24 hours, we have 3 lives. One is in our office life, one is out of home, out of office life, and then the third one is home life, right? So how do you sort of make that goodness as part of your life? And second question here is, can integrity be taught? Can you really, sort of ignite that vibe? And if yes, because I feel if there isn't, so one of the questions, and it took me back to my college days, in my MBA, interview, they asked me, how honest are you? And my answer was like, I'm 90% honest. So for me, that's how, if your integrity is something like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
great. So let me just answer your question in 2 parts. The first part is time to be good. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, goodness has to be omnipresent. It has to be omniscient. We have to, think good and so on. But in today's practical world, I think goodness comes at a price. Goodness is a privilege. I would say that. And I say this because in many organizations and many forums, I always find that there is a great focus on highlighting all the bad things that have happened in the organization. Somebody did something and this was done wrong, and having very little mind space to highlight what good is happening. I would only give one reason or one business case for being good. You will sleep better at night. Okay? We have something called as intentional career pathing. And there is this concept of intentionality, career intentionality. And people often ask us, how can you teach career intentionality? And we are teaching it. So if we can break down the different parts of what integrity really means to you, is it honesty? Is it graciousness? Is it trustworthiness? Is it decency? Is it patience? I think and that is very personal to each of our businesses. In your case, it could be promptness. In somebody else's case, it could be the ability to convince somebody. Honesty. So these could be. So if we can identify what that integrity is specific to your business, igniting it is very, very easy.
I have just I know there is a bell already done, just last closing remarks from you. This room is full of CEOs and full of future CEOs. That's how I really see you guys. So even if you're not right now, start thinking on those lines. That's the way I really see it. What are the 2 messages as a communicator and the CEO which they should not forget and take away from this particular conversation?
Super. I'm just going to point to the book you're carrying with you.
I'm sorry.
So that's my book. That's the 99-Day Diversity Challenge. And that is India's first experiential book on culture building. How can you build a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture in the proverbial 99 days? Is it even possible? And it begins with a story of a CEO called Bharat Manush. And the idea was, it's just, words for Indian man. And I was kind of trying to, tell a story about a CEO who kind of discovers that, his workplace, contrary to his belief, and this is the thing with, us CEOs, we kind of look at it from that 40,000 feet in the air. And we kind of see it and we believe, and this is also another bias called projection bias, where we believe that things are fine and we believe that's the same thing our people are also experiencing, and we project it on them. And the book talks about all of these different biases. It talks about a way in which a company can actually become that. But the message, to Vineet's point, to each of you over here, what should a CEO do? I think the CEOs are the lighthouses. And I mentioned this in the book too. A lighthouse is the tallest structure around you. And in Chennai, we have some fantastic lighthouses. And the tallest lighthouses cast the longest shadows. So as CEOs, it is your imperative to make sure that you are able to influence goodness in your workplaces. And by doing that, you're going to be creating good business, because being good is good for business. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Mahakumbh of Communicators, Praxis. Thank you, Amit, Anubhuti, Reputation Today, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Saundarya Rajesh and Vineet. Stories, anecdotes, references, statistics. What an absolutely engaging session. It inspired us in so many ways. Time to be good and to build goodwill. Time to eliminate bias. The 3 things to do: talk about it, build confidence, enable flexibility. That was one session that traversed the space of intent, integrity, and inclusion. Thank you once again.